He was undefeatable. So Virochan became very arrogant and offensive, especially towards the demigods. And um, the demigods, being highly educated, very clever, they approached Virochan and they asked for, in the form of Brahmins, and they asked for dakshina or a donation. And he said, yes, I will give you donation. What would you like? And they said, we want your crown. We want the golden crown that you have on your head. So Virochan was true to his word, like Prahlad. He knew that if he gave this crown, he would be destroyed. And he knew those who were in front of him were demigods. But nonetheless, he was very generous and he gave them his crown. And of course, that led to his destruction. And once he was killed, his son Bali became very angry by the deceit of the demigods. And he waged a war against the demigods. Now, Bali Maharaj, initially, actually, he was defeated by the demigods. In fact, he lost his life. But at that time, there was the guru was Sukracharya. And by the mercy of Sukracharya, he was given Sanjeevani. So Bali Maharaj regained his life. And he did some incredible tapasya and penances and charity. He would give everything to his spiritual master. And because of the blessings of the spiritual master, he became invincible. And the demons defeated the demigods. The demigods were surprised by these defeats. And Indra approached Brihaspati and asked, why are the demons so victorious? So Brihaspati replied, even those who are evil may achieve temporary success. Because of his penances and charity, Bali has become extremely powerful. Don't try to resist at this moment. Because Brihaspati's advice was, if you keep fighting, you'll keep losing. So Indra took the advice of their guru, and the demigods retreated. They lost their heavens, and Bali moved in, started ruling the universe. And Indra's mother, the demigod's mother, Aditi, she felt very sorry for her sons. They had been displaced from their rightful place, the heavens. And she appealed to Lord Vishnu for help. And she did some tapasya, and she made very heartfelt prayers to the Lord. And the Lord responded. He reciprocated. He agreed to become her son. And he said to her that I will appear within your womb within a short period of time. And in due course, he entered her womb and he took birth. He appeared in a blackish form with 4 arms, dressed in yellow garments. And this is how he looked. Very, very amazing, as always, Lord Vishnu. And Aditi was so pleased when he appeared. And shortly after that, he changed his form into a Brahmin boy. He's sometimes referred to as a dwarf, but he's a Brahmin boy called Vamana. And he appeared, he was wearing a deer skin and a sacred thread, carrying a staff and a water pot. This is what he looks like, absolutely gorgeous. So Aditi was the mother, and Kashyap Muni was the father. And they were very happy to receive this charming, beautiful, effulgent incarnation of the Supreme Lord. And this is none other than Lord Vishnu himself, partial incarnation of Lord Vishnu. So, at that same time, the king, Bali, was preparing for a religious ceremony which would actually make him even stronger and control the whole universe for a much more longer period of time. At that time, Vamandev went into this arena, and When he walked in, he was very effulgent, shining like the sun. And the priests were very, very in awe of him, as was Bali. He became very happy to see this very special guest who appeared in front of him. He welcomed him, offered him a seat. He worshipped him. Him and his Dharmapatni bathed his feet. And he said to Vamana, that it's customary that a king gives charity to the Brahmins. So what can I give you? I have the whole universe at my disposal, and you can take anything you want. Food, cows, horses, elephants, chariots, houses, villages, gold, whatever you like. So at that time, Vamandev said to the king, I only want 3 paces of your land, 3 footsteps. That's all I want. And Bali Maharaj was very surprised. He said, I can give you the whole universe. I can give you everything you want. I can give you a planet. But is that all you want? 3 paces of land? Take more. Because I want to give you more. You're so effulgent. You're so glorious. I can see you are a very elevated personality, and I'd like to donate to you. This is quite a natural reaction, actually, when you see somebody who is glamorous and you want to give something, you want to give a gift. So this is his mood. So Vamandev replied to him, actually, the Brahmin should be very happy with just what he needs. And all I need is enough land to sleep on. 3 paces of land is more than enough for me. Otherwise, Brahmins can become very greedy. And a greedy Brahmin is very bad news for this world. So he was preaching to Bali Maharaj. He was saying to him, actually, Bali Maharaj, you become too greedy. You've taken over the whole universe. You only need 3 steps of land to sleep on. That's all. So indirectly, he was telling Bali Maharaj that you've been very greedy in your life. The king shook his head in disbelief. My dear Vaman, although you're very learned, you're only a boy. Therefore, you're not so intelligent and don't know what's best for you. Take this opportunity. I could easily give you an entire planet. So Vamandev replied, thank you. However, only one who is not greedy and content with whatever God provides is truly happy. If I were not happy with 3 paces of land, I'd also be dissatisfied with an entire planet. And if I did own a planet, then surely I'd want another one and another. A person unable to control his greed cannot be happy, even if he owns the universe. Therefore, all I ask of you is 3 paces of land. And we've got practical examples of this. I can't remember his name, but one of the billionaires in Brazil was asked a question one time, when are you going to stop working? And he said, as soon as I earn the next billion. So greed is something that's just insatiable. We can never satisfy it. And the only cure to satisfy greed is to become greedy for the Supreme Lord. If we become greedy for the Supreme Lord, i.e. greedy to do service for him, greedy to chant his names nicely, then our material greed can be satiated, it can be satisfied. But otherwise, greed is very difficult to control. People do advise that in order to conquer greed, one should be very charitable, like that, give as much as you can. But the problem with greed is it's an inherent issue with us, that if we want something, we just keep wanting more and more. Even if you give it away, you want more of it. So Acharyas explain that it's best if we become greedy for the Lord. That would cure our propensity for greed. Sukaracharya, the priest of the demons, he is the spiritual master of the demons, and the main guide actually of Bali. He knew what was going on, and he advised Bali, this is Vishnu who has come to take everything away from you. You don't have to uphold your promise. One, he's taking it by deceit. Another, you haven't taken water in your palm and made the promise. You haven't uttered the word Om. So you don't have to keep your promise. You can revoke your promise. And I advise you strongly that you should not honor this promise that you've made to giving the land. Now, Bali retorted back to his spiritual master. Normally, you wouldn't, you would do what the spiritual master says. However, if the spiritual master is going to take you away from service, from serving the Supreme Lord, then there isn't an obligation on you to follow the order of the spiritual master. Bali was not prepared to go back on his word. He knew that Mother Earth cannot bear the weight of a dishonest person. Now that the Lord himself had come to his door, how could he go against his supreme will? Bali knew this is no ordinary person. This is the Supreme Lord, and he will take everything away from me. But yet still, he did not listen to his guru's order. He rejected the order. And Sukracharya actually cursed him that you will lose everything. So Bali Maharaj didn't care. He cited the examples of great souls who've given their lives for others. And he explained to Sukracharya, well, at the time of death, I'm not going to take anything with me. So why should I worry? Everything's going to stay here. So I might as well give to Lord Vishnu while I can. Sukracharya was really not happy with Bali Maharaj at all. But Bali Maharaj didn't care. He wanted to serve the Supreme Lord. So, take whatever you want, Bali Maharaj said to Vamandev. Immediately, Vamandev grew. With his first step, he covered earth. This says half the universe. Okay, half the universe. With the second step, he took the rest of the heavens. So this is his second step. He covers not just earth, but he covers all of the 7 higher planetary systems, and goes further. He goes through all these coverings, and if you recall, these coverings are 10 times bigger than the previous covering, and it amounted to, I can't remember the mileage, but it was a huge amount of miles. But the Lord's second step took him all the way, and he pierced a hole in this covering into the Viraja river, and a few drops of the river came down. And that is Ganga and Yamuna. Very interesting. Then he returned back to his normal size, and he said to the king, I now own everything you have, but you made me a promise of 3 steps of land. Where do I place my 3rd step? And at the same time, the Lord actually bound Bali. Garuda bound him up with the snake of Vasuki. Yeah, that's right. And at that time, the king definitely realized this is Vishnu himself who's come to cheat him. There he is, bound up. And Bali Maharaj is holding his head in shame. There's Prahlad Maharaj has come. There's Prahlad Maharaj, the grandfather of Bali Maharaj. And he was always advising Bali that you should make peace with the demigods. But Bali Maharaj was intent on taking revenge due to his father's death. And now he was standing in shame before Vaman. Where do I put my 3rd foot? The king replied, Oh Lord, you are always good. Whether you punish or reward, you appear to be my enemy, for you side with the demigods. But actually you are my true friend, helping me understand that this life and any possessions are temporary. Nothing in this world escapes the ravages of time. You have taken all my wealth, but I still have myself. This is the greatness of Bali. Please place your third step on my head. So Bali Maharaj surrendered himself completely to the Supreme Personality of God. So when we sing Shravanam Kirtanam Vishnu Smanam, Pada Sevanam, yeah, what's the rest of it? You remember it? Bhimi Kalashi, I forget everything. So he surrendered everything. Atma Nivedanam, that's it, Atma Nivedanam. He gave everything to the Supreme Lord. He surrendered himself. And it said that Vamandev became extremely pleased with Bali. And at that moment, Bali's wife, Dharampatni, Vindhyavali, she stepped forward and she addressed Vaman. Foolish men think that they own something, but in reality, everything belongs to you. Though my husband is offering you his body, he does not realize that it is on loan from you. Please forgive his foolishness. So the Mataji is brighter than Bali, as is always the case. Vamandev was very, very pleased, and he replied to her, "My dear queen, your husband has greatly pleased me. Determined to give me everything, he kept nothing for himself. By his full surrender, he has proven to be my devotee, my true devotee." So his wealth went, his land went, his everything went. But yet, Bali Maharaj stayed calm. He did not panic. And when the Lord challenged him, "Where do I put my third step?" Bali Maharaj very, very nicely explained, "You can have my head as your third step." So Vamandev became so pleased. He said to them, "For this you shall both live on the subterranean planet called Sutala. It is more opulent than even the celestial realms." And the Lord also said, "I will act as your gatekeeper. I will protect you on this planet with my disc, my chakra. And you can also see me at any time you want." What a benediction, huh? What an amazing benediction. So this is Sutala. It's the 10th planet out of the 14. And that's the abode of Bali Maharaj. It's the lower planetary systems. But the opulence here is far greater than in the heavens. And the Lord also said to him that after this life, you will attain the position of Indra and you will rule the heavens as well. So this is the pastime of Bali, and he's also regarded to be one of the 12 Mahajans. And do we know the Mahajans? I've got a list actually. So the 12 Mahajans, yeah. Actually, you can unmute. Does anybody like to name any of the 12 Mahajans? These Mahajans are regarded to be the knowers of the truth. And there's 12 of them, very famous. Anybody like to share any names?
It's a guess. Is it Narad Muni?
Yes, excellent. And who was before Narad? Who's the guru of Narad?
Brahma?
Yes.
How about Dharam Raj and
Yes.
Suraj Devta?
Suryadev. Suryadev is not actually.
Oh, okay, cool.
But he is certainly a very amazing devata. But he's not one of the Mahajans listed. Who came from Brahma's anger? When the four Kumar, oops, I gave away that one as well. Who came first from Lord Brahma? Can you remember? Who did he produce first? The little boys. What are they called?
Four Kumaras.
Four Kumaras. And the four Kumaras decided to remain brahmacharis. So Brahma became very angry. And who came from Brahma's anger? Anybody remember?
Not Daksh, right?
No.
No.
not Prajapati Daksh. But he did come from Brahma, but not from his anger. Anybody know? We're going to have to go through the Bhagavatam. Huh? Lord Shiva, he appeared. And then later on, Kapil appeared. Swayambhur Manu, he's also one of the Mahajans. Prahlad Maharaj, grandfather. Bhishma. And Janak Raj. Bali Maharaj, of course, we talked about. And the one we're missing out is Sukadev Goswami, who recited the Bhagavatam. So these are the 12 Mahajans who appeared.
What makes them Mahajan? What's their definition?
Basically, knowing the spiritual truths, knowing all the Siddhantas, knowing the Lord very well, knowing the spirit soul very well, having knowledge not just of the spiritual world, but of the material world, like Bhishma. He was asked by Yudhishthir about how a king should behave. So he replied, he gave a full reply to that. So these Mahajans have knowledge about every aspect, spiritual and material.
Okay. I wanted to add the wife of Bali, she was Putna in her next. Is she right? Because because over here you've mentioned she was very nice towards Vaman, but somewhere else I heard where she became really angry with him and said she wanted to.
Yeah, I heard that was the sister.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's a sister. And she initially, when she saw Vaman, she felt great affection towards him. And
like a mother.
Like a mother. Yeah. She said, I'd like to feed that boy my breast milk. And then when Vaman Dev took everything away from the father.
Brother.
Sister. Oh, okay, yeah. The brother. She said, I'd like to feed him poison. So, yeah, the Lord fulfilled that desire. Thank you for sharing that. Very good. Anything else anybody like to ask, or anything that you'd like to mention? Any realizations that you have? It's a wonderful pastime of Vamandev. Such a sweet pastime of the Lord. And his interaction with his devotee is incredible. This pastime is super excellent from that point of view.
I have a question. Why would they ask for land? Because, like, you'd think the Brahmins aren't supposed to, like, keep anything. I don't know. Just initially, when in here it came, he was asking for land. It's just something of a sastri thing where a warrior would want to, have land. But like Brahmins might get cows or something like that, food and stuff. Yeah. That's
true. I think, but land they're also allowed to own, Brahmins. I mean, they see tomorrow, or another time. See tomorrow? Maybe tomorrow. Parshuram, he conquered the 21 generations of Kshatriyas, and he owned all the land. And he was, of course, born of, although he's Kshatriya, he was born from a Brahminical culture. So it's not unheard of for Brahmins to own land, even in Vedic culture. But you do make a good point. Like Jandagni, the father of Parshuram, he had the Kamdenu cow, Surabhi Gomata. And he lived in a very simple lifestyle. And he would simply rely on Gomata for anything that they wanted. They didn't have any possessions. So it depends.
Yeah, but the ashram that he would own that ashram.
You would own the ashram, yeah.
So that would be his.
It's not given by the king or something?
Yeah.
The land?
By the king.
Yeah.
That's true.
So it's still under the protection of the king, that land then?
Yes. As would be the land of Bali as well, right?
Okay.
Just because he gives it, it's still under his protection. That's true.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Anything else? Anybody else? Otherwise,
Hare Krishna Prabhu.
Krishna, Sam.
Haribol.
Hare Krishna.
So, how can we convince non-believers that all these stories about the fight between the demigods and the demons are not some simple fables? That they are real. They actually happen, because sometimes you use the story to illustrate a point to non-devotees, and they think, oh, how can someone, just lift his legs and then cover the entire earth? And why is it that it's always the demons fighting the demigods?
That's right. Well, that's true. There are two classes of man in the world, one atheistic and one theistic. So generally speaking, they would tend to have this. I shared a room for 3 years with an atheist at university, and every day we'd debate about the existence of God. And I couldn't convince him and he couldn't convince me, but every day we'd fight. It's just the nature of the world, isn't it? But how can we convince? It's like Narad Muni. He came across the cobbler. The story of the cobbler and the
the cobbler
and the Brahmin.
And Brahmin, that's right. Yeah.
And the Narad Muni, to cut a long story short, basically, the cobbler was a devotee, but the Brahmin was a non-believer, although he was always engaged in ritualistic service to the Lord. Now, how did Narad find out? Because the Lord said to him, "You tell both of them that when you met me, I was threading an elephant through the eye of a needle." So when he told the cobbler, he said, "Wow." And Narad Muni said, "You really believe that?" I said, yeah. The cobbler said, yes. Because if the Lord can put a huge tree into a little seed, what's the difficulty in threading an elephant through the eye of a needle? So when he told this to the Brahmin said, you crazy fellow, you've never seen it. How can anybody thread a blooming elephant through the eye of a needle? So a lot of this is faith, right? A lot of it is faith.
Yeah.
So when we talk to those who don't believe, I think we have to adjust our language, our pastime, our story, so that it doesn't, to their level, so it doesn't, I'm not saying don't tell them the truth. I'm saying we have to tell them that something that's palatable for them to hear, so that they don't become antagonistic or go away from the Lord. So how to convince somebody, not an easy question to answer, I must say.
Indeed, because even using the story about the cobbler and the Brahman, they'll say even that is fable as well.
Yeah, right. I mean, one way I'd look at it is that before you had demigods and demons living on different planets. Now you have the good person, bad person in your own heart. So, there's always, you're always struggling between being a good person and a bad person. So, maybe, convince them that way.
Anyway, it's just an idea in my head, and then experiences as well.
Yes. And I think it's worth dwelling on how to get into somebody's psyche so that we can actually nicely convince them of the existence of God. Ultimately, even at the time of death, even an atheist will say, "Oh my God, help me." Right?
Indeed.
Our innate nature is to believe in something more superior. And if you look at our existence, if we don't believe in God, we'll be believing in a pop star, or we have a picture of a sports star on our walls, or other more superior. We always have some inclination to worship a more superior personality. So it's a natural thing for us. But because of our false ego, we sometimes deny the existence of God, and it's not a natural position to be in. Our natural position is at the time of death, oh my God, please help me. That's our natural position.
Indeed, indeed.
Anyway, really, I'll never think about that, because it's a good point. We often come across people who obviously don't believe in God, and whatever you say, they're not going to believe. And those sort of people I would avoid anyway, because no matter what you say, it's not going to be enough to convince them. And you might even take them away from God, which is actually then a little bit offensive. The ninth offense, it is to
try to convince non-believers about the glories of God.
Instruct a person who has no faith in the holy name.
Indeed, indeed. But anyway, what normally I say to my family, I said to them that, okay, I know you don't believe in anything that I say. However, at the time of death, you might be encountering something called the Yamadutes. If you see those kind of characters, just remember Krishna. Just remember Krishna at that time. Then you realize everything I've been telling you is the truth.
Nice. Thanks, Sam. I think we'll chat more about that, because it's something that obviously we care for others and we want them to become close to God. So that it's a very nice sentiment what you've said, actually. Very nice.
Prabhu, I'd like to add to that, because today I was asked that same questions. These are all just stories, right? Even the Bhagavad Gita. And I was like, I believe at the moment, I believe the Bhagavad Gita, this whole scene on the battlefield existed, but everything else, I was like, it could well be stories to explain philosophy, which is difficult to understand. But somebody else once said to me, to say, like, at your very deathbed, like, believe in the Lord, or like, so you go to a better place and all that. It's like it's that person's weakest moment. So it's like playing on that person's weakest moment. I don't know I forgot how this person who was speaking to me put it, but it is quite a subject where this person, he believes, if there's evidence for it, he'll believe it. So if there's evidence God exists, then he'll believe it, and stuff like that. So it was difficult to say something with what this person came to, like, you're telling a person to do it's their weakest moment, and so you could end up playing with that. So I didn't know what to say to that.
That's a good point. But this point about I can't see him, so he doesn't exist, is really a childish argument, because if you think about it, air, you can't see air, right? You know it exists because you breathe. So in a similar way, if you look at the order of this world, how the planets revolve around, if you're thinking this is because of a big explosion, that's actually, again, very childish, because how can an explosion lead to such wonderful order? Like the building that you're living in. Was there a tornado that went past, which simply made all these bricks nicely go together in beautifully structured building? No. If anybody tell you that, you think, no, that doesn't make sense. So why would we say the same about this universe? So if there's a hand behind the building, there's a hand behind the universe. And that hand, of course, we believe belongs to the Supreme Lord, a superior being who's in charge. So if we often have this discussion at schools, and definitely the children buy into this, because you can't see air, doesn't mean air doesn't exist. You can't see God, doesn't mean he doesn't exist. If you look at the order of this world, there's somebody behind that order, and that is a superior personality who is in charge of us. So there is a God. And, it's just a question of, you have to have the time and inclination to go through the different arguments. And in fact, one session we can have just on these arguments.
Yeah, I think it's more like going right to the very beginning where all those stars are created, where like for we have the faith, everything behind the Big Bang or whatever, you know, that there's somebody creating all of that at the very beginning, behind all of that. But yeah, so it's just, well, you know, science will eventually come out with that as well, what went on there. So it's that kind of belief there. But it was the other point that I was telling you, which I found difficult to talk about. So,
the weakness point, yeah.
The weakness point, yeah.
But ultimately, we're all at that weak point, because at any moment, life can just take us away. You know, like we can leave this body at any moment. We're always at a weak point. But just because at the moment you think you're in a strong point doesn't mean you have the right to deny the existence of that. I think that's an argument I would put forward, perhaps. Anyway, we'll have a think about that. It's worth just thinking through and talking through that. Oh, okay, Hare Krishna.
Okay.
So, thank you very much, everybody. So, we actually going to start the next session, and everybody can stay. You're very welcome to stay. This is honoring our spiritual master. His appearance day today, according to the Western calendar. And I'd like to actually welcome Trikalagya Prabhu. Trikalagya Prabhu? Are you there?
Hare Krishna, Dandavats, Prabhupada. I was on mute.
Dandavats, Prabhu. Thank you very, very much for joining us. Now, I know your time is a little limited, right?
Yeah, I'll stay on for an hour or so.
Hour or so. I tell you what, if we can just chant the Nashinga Kavach first,
sure.
I think that then all the other devotees will have logged in by that time.
Nice.
Is that okay, Prabhu?
Sure.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you very much. I'd like to thank you for joining us. Trikalagya Prabhu is joining us from Sri Vrindavan Dham. We are extremely fortunate to have his association. And Prabhu, at some point, can you also give us, you know, what you were telling me about Vrindavan? Can you also explain that to the devotees as well, about what is happening there? That would be nice.
Yeah, sure.
That'd be very important for us to understand.
You want to do it today, or you want to call another time?
No, today. Spend a little time and explain that, because, and I'll ask you the question and you can explain.
Sure, you can ask an appropriate question, then that'll remind me what I was saying.
Yeah, I'll ask. Yeah. So, Karuna, if we can chant the Nashinga Kavach.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Shri Lakshmi Nashinga Deva ki jai, Prahlad Maharaj ki jai, Prabhupada ki jai, Guru Maharaj ki jai. Nashinga Kavacham Vakshe Prahladena Ditam Pura, Sarvaraksha Punyam Sarvopadravanashanam, Sarvasampatkaram Svarga Moksha Pradayakam, Yadvanara Singham Devesham Hema Simhasanastitam, Vivritasyam Trinayanam Sharadindushamabhabam, Lakshmyalingita Vamangam Vibhuti Birupashritam, Chaturbhujam Komalangam Swarnakundala Shobhitam, Shriyasu Shobhiduraskam Ratnakeyuramudritam, Taptakanchana Shankasham Pita Nidbharavasatam, Indradimshuramolishta Suranmanipya Distibi, Virajita Padadandvam Shankachakradihetibi, Urudmata cha Vinayat Suyamanam Mudanvitam, Swarita Kamala Sambasam Kritva Tulpavacham Pate, Narasingho me Shira Patu Lokara Shata Samhava, Sarvagopi Stambhavasa Phalam Nerakshatudmanim, Narasingho me Disho Padu Tuva Suryadi Lochana, Simratam Patu Narahari Muni Varya Stuti Priya, Nasam me Simha Nashastu Mukham Lakshmi Mukhapriya, Sarva Vidyadi Papatu Narasingho Rasanam Mama, Vagram Padvindu Vadanam Sada Praharada Vandita, Narasingha Patu me Kantam Skundho Bhupananantakrit, Divyastra Shobhito Bhuja Narasingha Patu me Bhutu, Haro me Deva Varado Narasingha Patu Sarvata, Hridayam Yogi Sadyascha Nivasantam Patu me Hari, Madhyam Patu Hiranyaksha Vaksha Kukshi Vidarana, नाभिं मे पातु नरहरिः स्मरा विब्रह्म संस्थितः ब्रह्माण्डकोटयाज्ञां यास्यस्तु पातु मे सखीम् भूयं मे पातु भूयानां मन्त्राणां भूयरूपद्रिक् उरुमनो भव पातु जानुनि नररूपद्रिक् जाङ्गे पातु धरा भारहतायुस्तवृकेशरि सूरराजा प्रद पातु मे नरहेश्वर सहस्रशीर्ष पुरुषा पातु मे सर्वसत्त्वानि महोग्रह पूर्वता पातु महावीरागजोनित महाविष्णु दक्षिणे तु महाजालस्तु नैऋतौ पश्चिमे पातु सर्वेषु दिशि मे सर्वतोमुखा नरसिंह पातु वायाव्यां सौम्यं हेशन विग्रह शान्यां पातु भद्रो मे सर्वमङ्गलदायक संसारभयत पातु मृत्योर्मृत्युर्निकेशरी इदं नरसिंह कवचं प्रह्लादमुखमन्डितं भक्तिमान्यपते नित्यं सर्वपापै प्रमुच्यति पुत्रवान् धनवान् लोके